Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we are going to look at the best credit cards for fair credit / average credit customers. But before we do that, I would ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already. And if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So I think this is always a popular topic. We talked about it a year or so ago, but we're updating it along with some other updates that I've been doing recently on different topics that I think are sort of evergreen. People always want to hear about them, but obviously things change in the credit card industry. So we're going to talk about cards that are good for people that have average to fair credit. Now, average to fair credit is a difficult thing to pin down. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It could mean different things to different lenders. For purposes of this video, we mostly are talking about scores sort of in this 650 to 700 range. Might bump that out a little bit to go down to around 625 and up to around 725. So maybe we'll use sort of a 625 to 725 for purposes of sort of inclusion here in terms of what might qualify depending on who the lender is that we're talking about. All right, so what I'm going to do is discuss the credit cards that I think fit the criteria that I've sort of put together there, going from the bottom up, the sort of, 625 to 650 range, and then going up to 700 and maybe a little bit past that. So the first card that we're going to talk about is a card that is sort of a perennial winner, I guess you could say, in terms of a card that many people can get approved for with a lower credit score, and it is an unsecured card that is sort of friendly to them. So if you're sort of on the low end of what you might consider the fair to average credit score range, this is a card you might look at, and that is the Capital One Platinum MasterCard. It is not an exciting card, so when I say, sort of the best credit card, it's not so much that it's a good card as it is that it is a card that accepts a lot of people with lower credit scores. It's a no annual fee card, has no rewards, has a fairly high interest rate, so there's not a lot going on with the Capital One Platinum MasterCard other than the fact that it may approve you if your credit score is lower in that fair credit average range and you are trying to continue to get yourself a little more, more credit lines and build up over time. So depending on your credit score, you might get a very small credit line with this, but you could get a higher credit line and it also could build over time. So for a lot of people, this is sort of the beginning of their sort of journey from bad credit up to good credit. For people that are newer to credit, this card can also be something that that works for you as well, although you also have some other options that we're going to talk about as we go along here. So over the past year, we've had three sort of new entrants into the credit card game that I think fit into this sort of tier of cards where they're looking for people that have fair average credit and are maybe a little bit lower down the scale. Now, they're also sort of, targeting people a little higher too, but I think there is a decent chance of being approved here. Now, those three cards are the Alo card, which tends to actually target you more than waiting for you to come to them. There is the Avant card, and then there is the Pedal credit card. So the Alo cards and the Avant cards, I think, are sort of targeting people that, maybe have had some credit problems in the past. They seem like they are decent credit cards. Again, not a lot of frills necessarily. You're probably going to get smaller credit lines. The Alo cards do have rewards depending on sort of where you fall in the credit score range. The card that I actually find the most interesting of the three is the Pedal card. And the reason for that is the Pedal card actually is a card that is more targeting people that have thin credit files than it is targeting people that, maybe had some credit problems in the past and are working their way back up. So if you have a fair, average credit score right now, but the reason that your credit score isn't great is because you simply haven't had enough experience with credit, haven't had enough credit cards or loans or whatever, and you're still very sort of young in your credit career, then the Pedal credit card is one that is probably targeting you. I think these other cards are more likely to be ones they'll be happy to have you if you're newer to credit, but they also are sort of targeting people that are on their way back up again as well, where the Pedal credit card very specifically in its marketing is talking about people that are newer to credit. And by the way, I've done videos on all three of those newer cards, so you can look for those as well if you want to go further down the path of investigating them. Now, another option for people in this sort of zone lower in the credit score range, within the fair average range, there are store credit cards, things like the Walmart MasterCard or the Gap Visa. These cards are issued by Synchrony Bank, although Walmart is going over to Capital One soon, at least as we're making this video. These are cards, though, that are known to accept more people, and so these are cards that maybe are a way, sort of a foot in the door as you're trying to, sort of get your credit score higher. The downside to these cards, or the danger with these cards, I guess, is the fact that you could apply for them, and what could happen is they could approve you, but then decide they're not going to approve you for the MasterCard or Visa version. They're going to approve you for just the store-only version, which sort of defeats the whole purpose of why you might be looking at them in the first place. Because, for most people, or at least what we're discussing here, we're really talking about cards that are more general use. So that's sort of the danger with those cards. You don't necessarily want to apply and then have the possibility of just getting the store-only version because that's probably not what you're looking for. Now, the other piece here in this range is college student credit cards. If you are somebody who is in college, even if you have a fair credit score, again, you're probably a thin file or maybe even no file. But a lot of these credit card companies are willing to take a chance on you while you are in college, and they may not be able to willing to take that same chance on you once you're out of college, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that is kind of how it works. So even if you are somebody that doesn't have much of a file, and you are somebody that doesn't necessarily have much income, you are more likely to get yourself into a decent credit card while you are in college. In particular, Bank of America has 2 or 3 cards that basically mimic their sort of mainstream cards in terms of rewards. They usually have a higher interest rate with them, but they're still, decent cards. So if you are at a place where you are young and in college and, bothering to watch this video and have a fair or average credit score, that is definitely a place to look as you think about how you want to, build up your score and get even, better cards in the future. All right, now what I think of as a step up from those cards I just talked about, I think for a lot of people are the Capital One Quicksilver cards. There's the Capital One Quicksilver, the no annual fee version, which gives you 1.5% cash back on everything that you buy with the card. Very simple to understand, and it is a card that I think is open to a lot of people, still on the lower end of the, sort of fair average range, but a little bit higher than what the Platinum MasterCard would be. There also is the Capital One Quicksilver 1 card, which is essentially the same as the Quicksilver card, except for the fact that it has a $39 annual fee. So it is possible that, if you can't get approved for one, you might get offered the other one. Another thing that I would say here as we're talking, and probably in the credit score range, what I'm talking about right now is now we're getting, probably into that, 650, 675, maybe even up to 700, depending, is credit union credit cards. Now, there are a ton of credit unions out there. A lot of them don't have very interesting cards, but some of them do. So if you are, with a credit union already, there may be credit cards that are interesting. I know one credit union that a lot of people like their credit cards is Navy Federal Credit Union. So if you are eligible to be part of that credit union, you might have a relationship with them that is a bigger banking relationship, where if you have a lower credit score, the fact that you have a banking relationship with them, even though, maybe other, major credit card issuers might see you as sort of just a middle of the road fair credit, a credit union might be more willing to work with you. And if they have, nice credit cards, then that is another way to go when you're sort of in this space. So when we move up to the next level, the card universe sort of opens up for you a little bit more. And so we're going to look at cards that, when you're around that 700 range, these are cards that you may be approved for. One of the things that is sort of frustrating to a lot of people when they are in this range is that sometimes they get approval for some of these cards and get rejected for others, and they hear about other people that had lower credit scores who got approval on the cards that they got rejected for. So these cards are ones that sort of work in that, work in this space here, but they are cards that sometimes have a little bit of a higher standard. So it can be kind of a crapshoot at times. So I'm going to talk about these cards, and if you have any experience with them yourself, I would love to hear it in the comments to hear what your credit score was and what you were accepted or rejected for. But anyway, the cards that I think of as being this next step up here in terms of credit scores are the Chase Freedom, which is the 5% cash back in rotating categories each calendar quarter. The Chase Freedom Unlimited, a flat cashback 1.5% on everything that you buy, 3% in the first year as of the making of this video. So you get 3% on everything first year, 1.5% after that. The Amex Everyday cards that give you membership rewards points and have some categories with higher points based on spending in those categories, I think fit in here. The Wells Fargo Rewards card, which is not really a card that I love, but it has sort of a little beefier rewards up front, but then it kind of reverts back to a 1% rate, which is, not really all that great. Plenty of cards on the market for that. So they kind of get you up front, try and draw you in up front, but then it kind of reverts a little bit. Any of the Discover cards, I think, fit into this range, like right around 700. So the Discover It card that gives you the 5% cash back based on rotating categories, just like the Chase Freedom card. The Discover Chrome card actually might even be a little bit lower down the scale, might even fall with some of the other cards that we've already talked about. And the Discover It Miles card, also another card that gives you 1.5 points per dollar, which can be used toward travel, but also you can turn them into cash as well if you want to. And Discover doubles all your rewards in the first year. So for example, with the Discover It Miles card, those 1.5 miles or 1.5 points would be 3 points or 3% on a cashback basis. So a nice first year with Discover. Now, a card that I think of as a very good card, but I think it is something that could be open to a lot of people at this range, is the PayPal Cashback MasterCard, another card from Synchrony Bank. Synchrony Bank has a couple of, sort of general market cards. Usually they're the store cards, but they do have a couple. The PayPal Cashback MasterCard is giving you 2% cash back on everything that you buy with the card. Your earnings go into your PayPal account, and you can, use them through that account, or you can just take them out of the account if you want the cash. So that is a pretty good card, and it actually stacks up very favorably to something like the Citi Double Cash, which is probably not open to people in this credit score range. This one does have a higher interest rate than some other cards, but if you're paying off your full balances every month, and that shouldn't matter to you, and so you can get that 2% cash back. Another card in this area that I don't necessarily think is the greatest thing, but I always see people talking about how they are, wishing they could get to a place where they could get this card, and that is the Marvel MasterCard, which gives you, as the name suggests, it gives you rewards from the Marvel universe. And I don't know if from my perspective, the rewards are only okay, but maybe the idea of just having that Marvel credit card in terms of the looks of the card itself is what attracts a lot of people to it, and I think it probably fits in this area as well. All right, so pushing past 700, a little bit into the low 700s, getting up to around 725. Now we're getting to a place where we are still sort of in the fair to average range, but we're not very far off from getting into, good and excellent credit here. Now, when we look at these cards, these are ones that I think are that next step up, although again, some of these are going to have some variance in terms of, some people are going to say, oh, I got that at a lower credit score, or I had a higher credit score and couldn't qualify. But the ones I think of as being a little bit past 700, some good cards in that range are the Blue Cash Everyday or the Blue Cash Preferred cards from American Express, which give you cash back in particular on groceries and gas at higher levels. One has an annual fee, one does not. The Capital One Venture cards are popular with a lot of people. I'm not as high on them as some people are, but if you're someone that is interested in one of the Capital One Venture travel / points cards, I think that if you're sitting a little bit past 700, you should be able to get your hands on either one of those. The Amazon Visa, the Disney Visa are two that Chase issues that I think of as being a little bit past 700. I have a feeling that some people are going to tell me that they got their hands on these cards for a credit score a little below that. But they're sort of cards that, in my mind at least, most people, I think, have a little bit higher credit score to get their hands on those. And I'm talking about the Amazon Rewards card, either the Prime or the regular Rewards card, not the Amazon Store card that Synchrony Bank issues. That one would be significantly easier to get than the Amazon Visa. And then another card that is new within the past year that I think also probably fits in here is the Citi Rewards Plus card. And the reason that I put that card here, normally I think of Citi as being, fairly higher credit scores in order to be approved for their cards. This one, I think, seems a little bit different because the reward structure sort of suggests that they might be going after a sort of younger demographic. And the reason I say that is because one of the key features to this card is the fact that that Citibank will round up your purchases in terms of the points they give to the next 10. So if you're somebody that makes a lot of $1, $2, $3 purchases, instead of getting 1, 2, 3 points on those purchases, you're going to get 10 points on those purchases. So it's sort of something that rewards you for using the card for smaller everyday purchases like the Starbucks and that sort of thing of the world. So I tend to think that this is a card where Citi maybe is has a little bit of a sliding scale here in terms of who they are approving for this card. But again, we're talking about, probably most people still having to be at least 700 to get their hands on it. So that's those are sort of the cards that I see as being accessible to people in the fair credit range from the, down 625. And then we worked our way up to sort of the 725 range. Now, obviously, when I talk about these cards, I'm also leaving out some cards. There are some cards that I think when you are at the fair average credit space, you're in that area, that you probably are going to be shut out of. In particular, I would say the Chase Sapphire cards are unlikely to approve you when you are, under 700, even a little bit above 700 could be difficult. The Chase Sapphire Reserve in particular, because it requires a credit line of at least $10,000. So you're going to have decent credit in order for them to approve you for that. The Chase Sapphire Preferred, maybe a little bit less. The credit lines don't have to be as high with that one, but either one I think is not going to be the easiest thing. The Wells Fargo Propel, a no annual fee card, but it gives an awful lot of rewards, and I think that card is something where you have to have a little bit higher credit. And from what I've heard out there in the market, a lot of people are getting rejected if their credit scores are not high enough. The Uber Visa is a card that I'm a little bit two ways on that one. I think it is probably out of the reach of a lot of people. Maybe if you're on the higher end of things in terms of the scores that we just talked about, that is something you could get your hands on, but not as easy as some of the other cards we've talked about. Just in terms of issuers in general, I already said that I think Citibank is one that doesn't work too hard to approve people who are in the high 600s or even low 700s. But also I think Bank of America oftentimes does not work as much with people that are in the fair credit market. US Bank does not work as much with people in the fair credit market. However, with US Bank, I will say that if you have a prior relationship with US Bank, if you already have a banking relationship, your chances might be a little bit better because they are pretty big on the relationship aspect. And it's probably kind of true of Bank of America as well, because they really want to sort of have that holistic banking relationship where not only are they giving you your credit cards, but they're also, doing your checking and savings and your investing dollars and all that sort of thing. So if you have a relationship with one of those companies, your chances obviously are going to be better. Co-branded cards with the airlines or with hotels, I think, tend to be a little more difficult. And so if you're sitting in the fair average credit lane, you might not be able to get your hands on those. I think the Hilton cards might be a little bit easier than some of the others, but for the most part, I would say those co-brand cards can be a little more difficult. And then finally, the Amex charge cards, the big two, the platinum or gold cards. I think for the most part, American Express is not looking for, your average credit customer. They're looking for people that have a little higher credit scores and are going to spend a little bit more money too. So I guess there's sort of two things working there. They want that higher credit score, but then they also want someone that has, probably a higher income so that they can have the feeling that they are going to be getting something out of that customer as well. So probably not for the fair average credit crowd. So I've left out a ton of credit cards here. Obviously, it's a huge market, so really I wanted to focus on the cards that are most interesting to people and the ones that they're probably curious as to, you know, what they need in order to be approved. But obviously, you know, there's cards that don't have any rewards or whatever who are more open to working with people that have lower credit scores or sort of in that 650 to 700 range. But those might not be as exciting to you, and so you might not want to watch a video that talks about a bunch of, you know, platinum cards with no rewards and, you know, boring interest rates or whatever. So like I said, nothing is set in stone here. Obviously, different issuers have different standards in terms of what they look at. And like I said, if you are somebody that's sort of, you know, crawling back up out of a bad credit history, you may be seen differently than somebody that just simply doesn't have much of a credit history and is trying to, you know, build up to those higher levels. So different banks, different issuers are going to see you in different ways and sort of might favor one side or the other. And of course, then they're going to look at other things such as what is your income, how much debt do you have, how many other credit cards have you, you know, looked for in the past. Now, obviously, all of those things I just said are already, well, not all of them because your income's not really baked into your credit score, but the rest of them are sort of baked into your credit score already. However, when you are sort of in that fair to average credit score range, a lot of times the issuers are going to take a more granular look at some of these specifics of your situation than maybe they would with someone that has, you know, a high credit score and a high income and, you know, a long credit history. So all of those things can come into play, which is why you so often see people online saying I had a, you know, 760 and got rejected, and somebody else said I had a 680 and I, you know, got it instant approval. You know, these are the things that happen because there are different reasons that, you know, different customers are appealing or unappealing to the credit card issuers. So that's it. If you are in the 625 to 725 range yourself in terms of your credit score, I would love to hear your experiences with any of the cards that I have talked about or any other cards that you think are interesting and would be good data points. I would love to see those, and I'm sure that other people that are sort of in the same boat would love to know what other people's experiences have been. And I think that's one of the nice things about, you know, a little community here on YouTube and other communities also online is the sharing of data points. So if you know something, please put it in the comments below, and I think all of us will appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews and our personal finance news, and we talk deals and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thank you for watching. Bye.